or be able to incorporate our CSO on this, because CSOs aren't doing traffic stops, to allow them to identify vehicles with headlights out and then write them down, and then that's the instance where we would be sending out the letter requesting the driver to come in and receive the voucher. Reached out to a couple auto shops in town already to gauge their involvement. Haven't heard back from any of them yet, but I'm going to continue that engagement to try to bring them all in. We are working with Maplewood, who received a full-time employee from the county attorney's office to help facilitate the sending out letters and all of the paperwork back-end channels. So we're going to be sending any information that we get related to the program directly to that FTE funded by the county attorney's office that's going to work in Maplewood, and then they're going to be facilitating that back-end paperwork for us. So kind of a true collaboration of work on this project.
That's always great to see many partners at the table. Do you see that is there a clear understanding between the different parties, like for Maplewood? Is it the evaluation data, or is it the financial pieces that individual will take care of?
I think they're going to be writing the letters and actually sending out the letter informing the driver, hey, we spotted your vehicle without a headlight. If you'd like to come into the city of North St. Paul, if it's inspired from one of our incidents, then it would have our branding on the letter, versus Maplewood will have almost the same language, but it's going to have the city of Maplewood's information on there, directing them to Maplewood.
Any other questions? Yes.
Sherman Patterson. So each voucher will have each department's logo or emblem on it, so that's identified. And also what Liaison would do is we will also update them, update the departments periodically. Now we do it twice a year, but we're probably going to move to quarterly to show them how many they have redeemed, so that can be measured and they can see the outcome and see how the program is working. So we're working with that, and then with the program where we're working with North St. Paul and Maplewood, we're working that out now. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Any last questions? All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is our 2024 internal service funds and other budgets. We got Dan here, our finance director, Mr. Winnick.
I'll be in touch. And Shar, thank you.
It worked.
Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. This is the last installment of the budgets. The first meeting in December, we will have the Truth in Taxation, which is the public hearing regarding the budget. And then the budgets will be approved in the last meeting in December. In tonight's installment of the budgets, we'll be talking about our internal service funds, and our other budgets are really our special revenue funds. Our internal service funds account for the financing of goods and services provided by one department to another department within the city on a cost reimbursement basis. We have 5 of them. We have the Information Technology Internal Service Fund, the Insurance, Equipment, City Mechanic, and the Building Maintenance Internal Service Fund. The Information Technology, it's all of the budgets were attached to your documentation and line item detail. The Information Technology budget is a balanced budget of $495,000. The significant changes is the contractual services expense budget For Metro INET, that is increased. Yes, we will be looking at other ways to provide those services and do an analysis before the middle of next year, because that is the time that we would have to give notification if we were to go away from Metro INET. This is the second year that we've seen significant increases. If you remember last year, meaning this year, was a 20% increase. This is a 12% increase. In attending one of their quarterly meetings, their projections kind of look like we're at about a 10% increases for the next few years. So we definitely need to look at if we can get a different service provider and to save some money in that. Then we have the insurance fund. It's a balanced budget of $525,000. We're increasing it from our budget of 2023, approximately 7%. It includes our workman's compensation insurance, property insurance, general liability, and auto insurance. Now, those premiums from what we're paying this year technically will not be increasing 7%. However, our budget was not as high as it should have been. And like we did last year, we will be coming in with an amendment to adjust some of our budgets. We don't get the final numbers on insurance. We actually just got information on this, I think, about 2 weeks ago. So for budgetary purposes, we put in estimates. And so that's why we're seeing the 7% increase from where we're at in 2023. The equipment fund, the budget of $411,000. All of the items were included and are included in the capital improvement plan that you've already seen. So there's a list of those. We have revenues of a little over $1 million. The revenues come in two components. One charges back from the general fund departments, and then we're including in that revenue the funding that'll be coming for the public safety funds of $542,000. And there's a city mechanic. It's really a small budget. It just really covers specific materials and equipment that the city mechanic needs. All other costs that are attributed directly to a piece of vehicle is charged to that department directly. These are charged overall to all of the benefiting departments that utilize the city mechanic. It's a balanced budget of approximately $42,000. The significant changes, supplies increased approximately $3,000, and contractual services increased about $2,500. And then the last of the internal service funds is the building maintenance fund. And so that's taking care of Public Works, City Hall, and all of the parks facilities. It has a budget of $631,000, revenues of just under $500,000. We'll require to use fund balance of about $137,000. Significant changes are supplies decreased $9,000, contractual services increased $56,000, and capital increased $108,000. The big component for the capital increase from our discussion on the CIP, there were new police garage doors that were on the schedule for 2025. From the discussion that took place during the capital improvement plan, we moved it up to 2024. Again, that hasn't been finalized. At City Council, you still have the right to change that if you disagree. In addition, if you remember, I think the estimates were about $180,000. Again, there's some questions that the city manager and City Council has regarding that type of a cost for, I think there's approximately 6 doors that are on the city or on the police side. So there's still some adjustments that can end up being made with that. I'm going to stop right here after the internal service funds and ask if there's any questions specifically on any of these 5 internal service funds.
Any questions?
I do. I'm getting confused on the supplies decreased being an increase in cost. Can you explain that to me?
It's not an increase in cost, it's a significant change.
Oh, okay.
And so significant changes, yeah, they can go up or down, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, the other budgets and their special revenue funds, we have budget for the community center, community event, fire relief, park fund, and the street maintenance fund. The community center fund, was created in 2020 to account for internal revenue of the facility and associated maintenance expenditures. The budget shows no rental revenue. We've lost our tenant and approximately $87,000 worth of operating expenses. So that will end up having to come from the community center fund balance. The long-term use of the building is still under discussion, and final decisions needs to be made on that. The next fund is the Community Event Fund, and that's really to account for events that are sponsored by the Art and Culture Committee, Park and Recreation Committee, and also includes the North St. Paul Car Show. The budget's just under 31,000, revenues are 13, and it'll use a fund balance of approximately just under $18,000. And then there's the Fire Relief Fund. And the Fire Relief Fund was created in 2019 to pass through North St. Paul's Fire State Aid to the North St. Paul Fire Relief Association and accumulate additional funding for future pension contributions to ensure 100% funding. For 2023, the Fire State Aid was $85,000. So we usually set this budget up approximately about $90,000. If you remember, there's a transfer that takes place between the general fund and this fire relief fund. And so they get this fire state aid that comes from the state, and then the city makes the additional contribution to come up to the $90,000. If you remember, there's been some discussion on changing the pension contribution for the Fire Relief Association, something that's being recommended by the fire chief. There still needs to be some analysis onto that because there is a long-term liability that is inherent with any decision that is made upon that for the city. And so that analysis needs to take place. The city manager needs to weigh in on that, make a discussion before it's presented to city council, whether that's something of interest in the timing of that. And then there's the Park Fund, and the Park Fund was created to finance capital improvement plans. Of our approximately $1.6 million of local government aid, $100,000 goes to the Park Fund. You can see we're also we have the Housing Park Grant, that's $194,000 that's included in this budget. And then there's $36,000 in levy. That levy was newly created this year. If you remember in our budget discussions, we're going to have 2% that is going to be going to street maintenance. And then we're going to have, I believe it's 0.55% of a levy going to I think it's the park fund, and then 0.45 going to, I can't remember the other one, but that's where this 36,000 is coming. And then there's a transfer out of this fund of $65,000 to pay the debt that's related to the Casey Lake Pavilion. Major projects in this park fund for 2024 include McKnight Field Master Planning, the Housing Park project, Downtown Park Master Planning, in the West End Passive Park, and the Casey Lake parking lot. And again, those were all included in the CIP plan. So that's all of our other funds that we haven't touched base that we budget for. And so do we have any questions with any of those?
Any questions? In regards to the community center, does that mean that there's no funds available in it at the current moment then? Because we have to draw it from the, another place. For the resort.
The community event fund has a fund balance, so it's coming out of that fund balance. It's not a significant dollar amount. It will cover this, community center. It will cover the $87,000 worth of expenditures. Eventually, it will run out. I mean, the city does need to make a decision what they're going to do with the community center in the future. It does not include, if the city were to decide to take the state grant and operate it as a multicultural facility. It does not include any of the programming costs or any other potential costs that would come out of that. If that were to come, if there's not a revenue source, then that's going to end up having an impact on the levy.
And what is the balance after those operating costs are taken out?
Off the top of my head, I'm going to say it probably will be underneath $100,000.
Okay. Any other questions? And can you speak a little bit to, no, I'm good, thank you. Right. Any other thing, otherwise city manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is the 2024 municipal fee schedule. We have Brandy Howe here, Community Development Director, to discuss.
Brandy?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Does everybody have access to the proposed fee schedule in front of you? I don't know if I have a way to connect to show it on the screen here. Oh, thank you. Okay, so I'll begin to do that if you'll give me a moment. But you'll notice that the fee schedule as proposed has been a little bit modified in years past. We have improved the layout in order to make it a little bit more usable and user-friendly to people that are actually interested in knowing what our city fees are. How the heck do I? Thanks for bearing with me here. Okay, here we go. So we've got a slightly modified fee schedule format. We tried to organize the categories in a way that would be easier for users to find the fees that they're looking for. So I'll just kind of start at the beginning and go through all the areas that we have proposed changes. The first one being in the administrative fees. We have proposed an increase in the candidate filing fee of $5 up to $50, and that would be consistent with what other communities are doing in our jurisdiction near us. We would suggest the minimum amount, if it's not going to increase to 50, it could be 15. But that is under discussion, and that is a suggestion. Our animal registration fees, we currently don't charge for bees, chickens, or dog kennel licenses. And so we're suggesting that that increased from 0 to 25 per applicant per year, as well as the trapping license. We have these items in our municipal code, but they have been absent from our previous fee schedule. So we just kind of went through all of our licenses and fees and made sure that we had an applicable fee to match it. The proposed building, mechanical, and plumbing permit fees, these are listed based on state statute. I would like to point out, we have been, per council's direction, evaluating our contract with building inspector, and we believe that we'll be moving forward with a new contract in the coming weeks. And so those fees that will be associated with that new contractor will affect the fee schedule. So anything related to building permits, mechanical permits, plumbing permits, et cetera, will need to be reevaluated, and that'll be brought forward at the next city council meeting. And so that decision came prior to this packet coming out. So here it is again. There's some additional permit fees related to the inspections that will also be impacted, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. The right-of-way permit fees are proposed to change based on the, I think this was just a reorganization from where they were before, so this is a clarification of our existing fees. The duplicate permit fee, this apparently happens a lot where multiple contractors or the applicant pull the permit for the same project, and there's just a communication issue. So we are proposing to refund fully any duplicate permits. And down to business licenses, we are suggesting, not that we would ever get a amusement park permit fee, but comparable to other communities, we are suggesting that we increase that fee from $125 to $350 for each instance for a temporary event. And then if we're going to have a long-term amusement park, the fee would be $2,000 at the initial license and $150 for renewal. Auctioneer, we're suggesting it go up to 25. This, I think, is another one of those cases where we had 0 in there before, and we just added it to the fee schedule. Christmas tree sale license, we're proposing to increase to 250, comparable to what we're doing, or what Maplewood and Oakdale are doing. And lawful gambling license, motion picture license, we're also increasing those based on neighboring communities. Taxi cab, it's another one where we weren't previously charging, but we're suggesting that if it's in the ordinance, we should probably have a fee associated with the processing of it. The massage therapist enterprise, we are proposing that it drop from $2,000 to $600 based on what our neighboring communities are doing. No changes to the alcohol licenses. Contractor licenses, we're suggesting that all the contractor licenses have the same flat rate of $80. Block parties, we're proposing $20 per event. Recreational programming would vary. The recreational programming would be anything that the Parks Commission or the Arts Commission might decide to do over the course of the year that we don't necessarily have a rate established at this time. One of the things that would fall within that is the paint parties that the Arts Commission has been doing this past year. So that rate, I think, is $10. So we're just kind of capturing it in this catch-all bucket. Electrical charges are the same. Fire department fees are also unchanged. Park and rec fees are unchanged. We're proposing that our fence permit and driveway permit go up from 65 to 75, as well as parking lot repaving. I'm removing the $25 per lot fee for PUDs and platting, simply because we just don't have that many plats that would require large amounts of lots platted. Increasing the escrows in a couple of instances, just to make sure that we have adequate funds to cover our professional services fees. Oops. And variances, we're suggesting those fees go up $300 for residential variance, $750 for non-residential. Police department also submitted their fees. They were mostly related to administrative costs and police officer hours. I would defer to Phil if you have any questions with those. No changes to public works or well, we do have a change related to utility, and I'll have Dan give an explanation for those.
Yeah, we have a few changes to the utilities. One is underneath the electric, and there's an Oakdale franchise fee change, which it's the city of North St. Paul recently approved a franchise agreement renewal with Oakdale. Oakdale had passed an ordinance changing their franchise fee from a flat fee to a percentage, and so now their percentage is 3% of the total revenue. And so that'll go into effect January 1st. So it'll show up for the just Oakdale residents that their electric utility services are provided to. But that they will not see that until the February billing comes out, because we bill 1 month in the past. We will take a similar methodology in which we did with the 2.25% credit and debit card fee, where we put it onto our website. We put a mailing insert. So the mailing insert for this one will only go to those who are being serviced in Oakdale by the electric department, to kind of inform them of the 3%. So we are currently in works with developing that language with the city of Oakdale on that insert. Then there's 2 other changes, if you can go down. As we went through the enterprise funds, there's going to be a 4% increase in both surface water and wastewater rates. And so these rate changes reflect that 4% of a change. And I think that's all of the changes that we will end up having on the utilities for 2024.
And that's actually all of the proposed changes for the fee schedule as well.
Thank you. Any comments, thoughts, questions?
One of the things I was surprised not to see, that I believe is a separate cost for residents, isn't there a separate cost for putting a deck on?
That would be a building permit.
Just a general building permit?
Yep, that's handled under the building permit fees. Yep,
Okay, thanks.
you're welcome.
Anyone else? Yes.
What, with all the proposed rate increases, what is the net income result of all these changes?
I would have to do some evaluating and bring that back to you at the next meeting.
Okay, I guess because I challenged some of them, just because other communities are higher, I don't know why we have to be, unless we've got deficits to come up with. My other challenge is the underwater rates. I don't understand why we have a 3-tiered water rate consumption plan based on usage, why we just don't have a flat rate.
Councilmember Cole, that's a good question. I mean, it's definitely something that we can look at. Historically, that's the way it's always been. I think part of it from a philosophical standpoint, I think that as the higher you go up, I think the rates are a little bit higher. So higher consumption is in certain ways penalized versus the lower consumption. But something definitely that we can look at and present back to City Council.
Just curiosity, because these are residential rates, not commercial rates, right? Or are they both?
They're both.
Okay. All right.
Come on down.
Mayor, members of the council. So the block tier water consumption schedule for rates, I mean, every city is going to have different rates, but the idea of a block tier to promote conservation is a requirement of the DNR and has been for some time. So all cities do have some version of that in place, but each city does have the flexibility within those block tiers, high, medium, low usage to be able to set those rates however they see fit based on utility rate study or other information. So you will see some consistency with that type of multiple rates, with higher rates going towards the higher consumers. And the idea, again, as mandated by the DNR, is to promote the idea of consumption, of preservation of groundwater as a resource or of drinking water as a resource.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not aligned with it, but thank you.
I am.
I don't think government needs to step in and dictate how much water you use and penalize you if you use more.
Well, one thing that I would like to bring up is the therapeutic massage enterprise. I see that it's dropped down to from 2,000 to 600. And then I see comments in the right hand that say 200 in Matamidi, 309 in Maplewood. Is that in reference to the therapeutic massage enterprise new or the renewal?
I believe that is the new fee.
Okay. I feel like that is a bit high. I think about oftentimes business owners are small business owners when they have therapeutic massage enterprises. And so I feel like $600 can be a little bit prohibitive when we compare it to some of the other fees for different sectors.
I would tend to agree with that comment. I was trying to bring it down into closer alignment with what our neighbor communities are doing, but still based on our earlier 2,000 per new license, reflect someone's in the past must have had a rationale for that higher value. So we are in a workshop setting, so I'm willing to take any consideration or suggestions.
Yeah, I would propose, 150. Let's see. Perhaps 200.
Is there any more work for the initial setup? Is that why there's a little bit higher as far as the first time? Because renewals are 150?
I would have to consult with staff to get a definitive answer to that question, but I would assume that it's probably fairly similar amount of staff time related to either renewal or a brand new license.
And that's something OpenGov helps us to process, correct?
That is correct.
Ours includes background check. Does that mean theirs doesn't?
Our fee definitively included the background check, so the other ones that were listed, their fee schedule didn't list that as an item, so we didn't have that information at our disposal.
How much is a background check?
I would have to double check unless Phil happens to know. Oh, he's not back there anymore.
I could see then new, the first time you have to do a background check, just like anything else, if there's a little bit, more work to it, because there's a background check. Well, I don't know if renewals or renewal considered a background check too. It's just pointing to the top line. That's just one difference I saw between the two.
So I can seek clarification and make some modifications to the therapeutic massage enterprise. There were others that were questioned. Would you like to talk about those?
Yeah, I'm looking at the auction and auctioneer license. It's $25, which seems substantially lower than some of the other annual license. Is that something to consider being a little bit more on par with what we're seeing with some of the other businesses?
I'm wondering if that is actually a typo now that I'm looking at it. I suspect that it was probably intended to be, well, I don't know, because down here we've got motion picture and outdoor theater are $25. There's some inconsistencies here throughout.
Yeah, I think of it almost closer to a pawn, not necessarily a pawn shop, but closer to a pawn shop type business.
I would like to speak to the auctioneer license. I actually like it being lower. I was actually surprised how often they're needed and used. As a member of the Minnesota Aquarium Society, I've had to get one myself just to do their local club auctions and stuff like that. So I agree with you, for a big business, it sounds low, but the amount of small organizations that actually need an auctioneer's license to stay within the bounds of the law, I like having the fee somewhat low. So it's easy for them and financially stable for them to operate within the bounds of the law.
I'm in line with that. I mean, you look at charity auctions that utilize an auction service. You look at estate sales that utilize an auction service. Yeah, I don't want to put anything that's too punitive to, to back that down.
I think that still 25 is a bit low. It doesn't have to be punitive, but I think that there can be room for something a little bit more comparable. Say 150, that seems to be a pattern.
Prior to this, it was 0, correct?
Yes.
How many licenses do we process per year, roughly?
I don't think we process any, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of these new fees that are in here, they're located in here because we have ordinances that say that we require licenses. So I think another step in our cleanup as we move forward in 2024 is evaluating how many of these are necessary, and maybe modifying the ordinances as appropriate. So I heard 25, maybe too low. 150, does that seem like the appropriate number?
I'm fine with 25 or less, especially if we have 0 people apply.
So for 25, we can see what it looks like.
Okay.
Still think it's really low.
Any other comments or questions?
Councilmember Wong, are you done? I've got one more, but I don't want to interrupt.
Are you looking for a little bit more direction on that particular?
Oh, I just want to make sure that you're comfortable with the fees that are proposed, and if not, let's discuss which ones maybe need to be modified. So if we're still talking about auctioneer, I'm happy to continue that conversation, but if there's other ones you'd like to touch on as well, I'd want to move on.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to jump in, Park and Rec. I just want to review that real quick. It's also on the consent agenda, and I, prior to this is a good place to have a conversation about it because I planned on pulling it from the consent agenda. I have concerns, and I guess I'm curious to know how the rates were scheduled, and I'm primarily focused on Casey Lake Pavilion. I think that it's a heck of a bargain for a resident, which is exactly what the property was built and designed for. I think there is some abuse that the property takes. There's a lot of damage that takes place. I guess I would just love to understand what the other properties around us in the community are going for. St. Pete's, what are some of the other properties going for rentals? And what are their damage deposits?
That's a good suggestion. We can get that information for the next meeting.
I second that, because I know when I talk to Public Works and other ones, that there seems to be a lot of trouble after events, and there's a lot of headaches and cleanup. So just understand where we're at and have enough skin in the game that people take care of things, I think really matters.
I see Freddie's head nodding back there too, so. And the other thing, and it's not necessarily in the fees, but I don't remember if it was in the packet that we've been asked to approve tonight in the consent agenda. I would like us to take a deeper look at, currently right now, Casey Lake is approved to be rented through 11 o'clock. Summer hours, the park closes at 10. I would like to see that the hours of the building be consistent with the hours of the park. And I would also like to add an additional fee or a percentage of the fee that if the party doesn't vacate at the appropriate time, that they will forfeit some or all of their deposit. Our cleaners sit out there and wait. They've had to call the police to come out and ask people to vacate. I just think we need to put a little bit more muscle into what we're doing for Casey Lake.
I second that.
I'm wondering, outside of the fees, if there's another way we can approach it as well. Fees are certainly one way. The other component is, how do residents or those renting receive the information and know that they're accountable for it?
It's in the
Yep, sorry. The renters do have to sign when they acknowledge all of the criteria for which they are responsible for when they're filling out their application. And if we need to make additional step of making sure that a conversation is had between parties and staff at the time of the key pickup, we can make that part of the rental as well.
Yeah, I think definitely looking at it from it sounds like more opportunity for education, whether that be you need to watch this video, and sometimes people just don't read. So I think if we can look at additional ways to communicate with the public around the building, then I think that could be helpful and worthwhile.
I'm not sure what our fee is compared to some, but sometimes being the least expensive is not the best, because it can draw, things, and we just want people that use it to make sure they take care of it, especially our non-residents.
I'm also aware that the city has found event planners that find our building very feasible from a pricing standpoint, rent it from the city, and then turn back around and re-rent it out for events. So this one's got a little bit of passion right here. So that was the other reason why I was going to pull it from the consent agenda, is just for additional conversation around it. But as long as we're having it here, because I believe, what's the date? We have to pass this thing tonight. Because residents can start renting 12/1,
This thing meaning the fee schedule or the park policy?
fee schedule.
Well, the,
And Carrie, do we have to have damage deposits and all that stuff? It's probably got to be squared away before December 1st. Right. Parks has to be completed before December 1st.
well, the fee schedule is not on the agenda for council action.
It is. It's on the consent agenda. Park and Rec is.
That's the policy.
No, the rental rates are on there, aren't they? Park rental policy, P, consent agenda, item P.
I see. Okay.
Thank you.
Just wondering how that works in collaboration with the fee schedule.
It's separate.
I understand it's separate, but we're going to have potentially two different sets of fees then, if you change the fees in the park policy tonight. You know what I mean?
Is date known, this December 1st by you? Is this something that's new?
The December 1st date, that's when the park facilities become available for residents. I guess it wasn't on my radar.
And non-residents are available 1/2, or whatever the first day of business is.
Is that something we can adjust?
Are there changes to the rates that are going to be on city council tonight for the parks? Are there rate changes?
I had nothing to suggest. I just wanted to know better understand the due diligence that was put behind the recommendation of not changing anything.
Correct, I understand that. So the park and recreation fees can be approved tonight and can go into effect December 1st if there are no changes. If there are any changes, there needs to be public notification and it needs to be posted for 10 days. That's where this whole park and rec fee would be. So we're still okay if there's no changes for the park and rec component. In addition, we do need to do some research to find out from your request to see if the rentals should change in the future. If that happens, it can either be done separately or be done through here, but a public notification needs to be done and posted for 10 days to be adopted.
Okay. And I'm recommending that the changes be made before that's made available, because we're entering into a contractual agreement with residents on
Absolutely.
December 1st. So whatever, their contracts would then be binding whether we change them afterwards or not.
Absolutely. So then we'll have to, at this point in time, we'll have to hold off on the item that's being presented tonight for city council.
Yeah. And I mean, again, my question goes back to what diligence was done to put into rates, what energy and effort was put into damage. Have we taken a look at the total damages that were caused to the property throughout the year?
That has not been reviewed, but we certainly can.
I can't remember during the summer, I think every time I went up to City Hall, there was either a bathroom pipe broken, something flooded at one of the locations and stuff like that. So it was some real money that was happening between Casey Lake and the other bathrooms and other things for our facilities that were being destroyed, to where it was to even open them up towards the end of the year because we ran out of equipment to even replace.
And does that come out of the building fund, building maintenance fund?
Either comes out of there or comes out of the general fund underneath the parks budget component to it. Now, and I don't know specifically, we would end up having to speak with a public works director on this. But I don't know if all of the damages were created by rentals.
Yep, there was, I know it wasn't all of them, but there was
Right.
quite a few as
Right.
far as that.
So,
But I think that'd be a good study for everything, because it sounded like we had a bad year.
Absolutely.
What I was listening to at City Hall.
Yeah, and it really comes down to, again, with the policy discussion of what costs are included, how much is being subsidized, how much is not being subsidized, because, janitorial costs, need to be considered, staff time needs to be, and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot more due diligence that needs to be done on. Yeah.
Randy, was there any additional costs besides the $150 deposit for people having alcohol at their events?
Presently, no, there are no additional changes as far as fees proposed in the policy.
Is there any way we can have it so we know, like the situation that Councilmember Cole brought up, where they're renting to another group then, that they're not allowed to
Sublet?
sublet? I mean, that's a part of it too. I mean, if I did hear the same thing that Councilmember Cole did, that people would get it and then they rent it out again to somebody else.
That I'm not familiar
that's-
with, and I don't know how we could police that, but we could certainly make it part of the policy.
I don't know if there's license, I don't know, but it sounds to me like it may be an issue, what's happening there.
I mean, I'm looking at, our next council meeting is on December the 5th. How much, Carrie, I'm looking at you, what angst, what problems, what if we postpone offering up the rental until whatever the Wednesday is, the 6th? 6-day delay, are we gonna have residents up in arms, are we?
So like a big day where at the first they call up and get their plans in, kind of like camping. You got to call January, otherwise you're sleeping on a road somewhere.
Uh-huh. And then same with amending the close time. That would probably need to go into the contract as well.
That, to me, seems like a less of an issue for changing right now, because that could be included in the park policy that you're going to pull at the next, the next meeting in 10 minutes. So we can modify that policy. Just to,
Again, everything is available as of right now, 12/1. So all the changes to park rentals need to either be resolved by 12/1, or we carry through a lot of crappy phone calls and ask that it be delayed.
Well, to do it right, I think it would be nice just to tell people, look, we can put your name down, we can put a reservation date on it. These are changes that might be coming. Sorry, we don't have the policy updated until a week from today or something. I think it's still doable,
That works.
if you're okay.
Yeah.
I recommend that over trying to do something, and wait a whole year.
Yeah.
Have to live through like a summer we had.
Yep.
My thought.
Jason?
Shooting from the hip, Dan, how much financial issues were created from the parks last year?
I couldn't even guesstimate at that. I would have to get back to city council on that.
I'm okay with what was suggested. I'm also okay putting it on a city council date of September of October for a good, give them plenty of time to get data and a discussion. I could see either way.
I mean, if our rates are aligned, I'm fine with that, but I haven't heard anything presented that stated our rates are aligned with what's going on here. And my primary goal is to fix damage.
We've certainly been more forward this year on issues that come along and keeping deposits than previously. As far as staff coming to me and asking me about issues that they've had, I could probably count on one hand how many times we had that to where it was significant enough that it was taking all of their deposit. That's just to my knowledge of that they've come to me on it.
Again, I think it's striking a balance of we want people to occupy this space and use it for events, et cetera, and we want to make sure that those damages are covered. Do we ever set aside specific funds for this particular building for the maintenance of it?
Not for this specific facility. All park facilities are lumped together, so.
Same with all city rentals.
All city rentals as far as parks related. All the rental revenue goes into the park fund. The expenditures are, regular maintenance items are in the building maintenance fund predominantly.
Any other thoughts?
We'll get those changes made and get them back to you right away.
Thank you. And then any other last discussion for the fee schedule? I guess my last thing is probably that the candidate filing fee for mayor and city council is $50. I think that's too high.
I'm aligned. I think we let it scrape up $5 last time.
Yeah. I think that's, something we want to encourage people is to participate in government. So if we can make it a little bit more affordable than not, then I think that could be helpful.
Does it make sense to make it $15 to cover our technology processing fee? Or would you like to keep it at $5?
15, yes, covering the fees
Whatever our cost is,
Yep.
not necessarily.
at cost.
I like 15.
Yep.
All right. Staff, do you feel like you have enough information at this time?
I have adequate direction to do some more studying, and that will be brought forward at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. And if I can get a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Councilmember Cole?
Second.
I get a chance to do it. Second.
Well, I looked at you, John, I didn't move, so I was
Ongi?
pausing.
I wanted
All
to be
those in
second.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, say nay. All right, the meeting's adjourned at 6:25.